Welcome to the whimsical world of Paul Klee. Today we're going to be doing a project based on his amazing abstract paintings that's all full of movement and texture as well. This gives an indication of how he was able to use texture within the painting and the placement of some patterning and some elements to suggest a real movement within the composition. With the beginning level, you can see by the samples, there are enormous possibilities for individual expression within the project itself. Not only in the drawing and the patterning that's done, but also in the use of the color that we're going to add at the very end of the project, which is a color wash. Let's take a look at our learning from Packet. Abstract shape. Klee used his imagination to draw his ideas. His work does not look real, so we call it abstract. Abstract is simple shape and line. We can use simple shapes and lines to make an abstract fish. And here it is. Draw your own fish that is abstract. We give them a realistic fish, and then here they put together these simple shapes to draw an abstract fish. Movement. Klee used shape, line, and color to make our eyes move around his art. Repeating a line, color, or shape can make our eyes move. And here we give them a still shape, and we show the suggestion of movement by the placement and where the shape is, even by the size, how we start large and get smaller and smaller, so we even feel as if this triangle is not only moving to the right, but it may even be moving away from us. Use shape of your own and repeat it to make your eye move. So we ask them to do one still shape and then repeat that shape in a way that gives it a suggestion of movement. Color can create movement. Klee used color to make our eyes move. Color shapes one color. Color shapes different colors. And you'll see that your eye will absolutely move when the colors are different. Pattern. Repeating lines and shapes can make patterns. Think of a fish jumping and the line pattern it makes on the water. Or you can even remind the children of when you throw a stone in a still area of water, the ripples, the pattern that it creates. Use repeating lines to make a pattern. And here's a sample. Children can do this kind of wavy, rippling effect, or even almost a plaid effect by using lines together. Add colors and pattern to the abstract fish. Make your eyes move around the fish. We will paint a fish like this for our art activity. So let us begin. We have a blue piece of paper, and we're going to use it horizontally. The children are going to use a pencil to begin with, and then they are going to go over their pencil lines in black crayon. We're going to demonstrate with a black crayon, of course, so the children can see. You may even want to wait before you hand out the black crayons to ensure that the children will be using a pencil and not their black crayon. And then afterwards, when we're finished with the black crayon, as you can see, we're going to add color by using tempera paint in a wash technique, which is very, very little color and mostly water. Let's begin. Let's start by moving out 2 or 3 fingers from the side right in the middle and make a dot. Your dot will be much smaller than mine. Mine's large so that everyone can see. Now this is going to be the bottom of our fish, and the line, and please watch mine before you make yours, it's going to dip down to be the bottom of the fish, and then it's going to go all the way up into the corner. And that's going to be one part of his tail. So now have the children make that same line. Once that's finished, a couple of fingers down from where that dot is, watch this line. It's going to start down, come through the dot to make the top half of my fish, and it's going to finish in the bottom right-hand corner. And notice how slowly I made that line so that the children's eyes could follow. And I even left my crayon right there so that they can connect the line I made rather than just making the line quickly and turning around. We need to do this very slowly. The more lines we add, the more potential for being confusing it is for them, so we want to go very slowly, and we're doing this together. Once we have this, let's do a tail, maybe a couple of fingers in. Mine's kind of narrow, so I couldn't go 2 full fingers in, which is fine. And then let's give this fish a head by starting a few fingers in from the side at the top, curving in and curving down. And then have the children do it. And you may even just want to leave your crayon up here while they're actually doing it. Let's give him a fin on his body area. So let's put a line going from one side to the other. It could be straight, it may be wavy. It's up to their artist's eye. And then they can add a little fin in whatever shape they would like. Here's a pointed fin. Here's a round fin. It's up to the artist's eye to make the type of shape that they prefer. We also need to we need to break up the space. So let's start a line, 2 or 3 fingers up from where the tail begins and go up, not to the corner this time. Let's do one on the bottom. And you'll be doing this much more slowly with the children. And we can add a top fin and a bottom fin to this. Oh my gosh, before we forget, let's give him an eye with which he can see. Now, again, this is a project where you will want to have as many possible samples as you can provide for the children so that they can see what a top fin might look like. Look at this, it's got points on it. This is just a little bottom partial fin. Here's some wavy ones. Here's a small one. Pointed, looping top fin. Again, a lot of possibilities. I'll do a wavy one, and I'll do a wavy bottom one as well. So we have our basic outline for our fish. Now, one of the things we need to add for sure is some pattern. How much pattern are we going to add? It's very judicious, maybe only in a couple of spots, because you can tell we're going to be adding a lot of color. So pick an area and do a pattern. And what does that mean? Well, think back to your learning pages. You may want to do a squiggly line pattern in one area, or you may want to do something that's a little more open and free. It really is up to the children. We want to give them a little bit of time, but we don't want to give them too much time because we really want to avoid detail on this. We don't want to add so much that this becomes a drawing project rather than a combination of an abstract drawing with color. Sometimes it's fun to do, as you can see by these bubbles coming up out of the fish's mouth. But as you can see, this was pretty fast and certainly simple. Now it comes potentially the tough part for the children because they really need to understand what you're doing with what we call a color wash. Each child will have a plate, and actually this plate has too much color on it. You can use almost half this much for the children. They're not going to paint, they're actually going to do a color wash. They have a brush and a cup of water. We want to make sure that we use this brush in an appropriate manner. That means we're not going to jam it down to get water in it, but we'll just touch it to the bottom of the cup. And the bristles have something we call capillary action, which acts like a straw, and it slurps that water up. One thing we're going to do before we actually start placing any of the wash on our project is we're going to mix a couple of colors. Now, these are what we call primary colors. Even though this is a magenta, it is in the red family. This is a turquoise, it certainly is in the blue family. So we're going to take a little bit of yellow right in between these two, and a little bit of magenta, mix it together, and what do we come up with? And I have the children identify it for me. I don't tell them what it is. Right, it's orange. I'm going to rinse my brush just a little bit, and we always start mixing with the lightest color first, so we keep it pure and clean. So we put a little bit of yellow and just a touch, just a little touch of the turquoise. It's not going to take too much to get what happens when we mix yellow and blue. Exactly, we get green. Rinse that just a little bit. Then we're going to take a little bit of the magenta and just, again, a touch of the blue, and we mix it together and we get a purple, kind of a grapish color purple. Now we have 6 colors we can choose from. And as you can see, I don't have very much of the purple or the green or the orange, and that's fine. It's going to take very, very little color because, again, we're not painting this. We're applying a wash, which means primarily we're going to have water on our brush with just a touch of color to it. Now, it's very important the children think ahead before they actually start putting the wash on. If they want to use yellow anywhere in their project, that's the color they should start with first, because that we want to keep clean and pure. So tell them to look at the samples that you've provided to them, and then look at their drawing and think, where might I want to use yellow? Probably in more than just one place, and then we'll start with that. Take the brush, make sure there's a lot of water on it, not a lot of drips coming off, but just a lot of water. You can tell when that brush is full. Touch it to your yellow paint. Just touch it. Don't jam it in, and then apply it to the area that you want to have a yellow wash on. Now, there's very little paint, and again, this is a wash. We're not going to paint it full of bright yellow paint. And again, I think perhaps I'll do this fish's face with this wash as well. Perhaps since I have a little left over, I'll just go ahead and do the bubbles. Great, there's my yellow. Now I think I'll do some magenta, and again, I filled the brush with water and just barely touched it to the magenta paint. And because I have so much water, it almost comes up pink, which is great for this area. May need to add a teeny bit of water to smooth it out. It'll be a little bit easier for the children to work on this because they're, of course, working on a flat surface, whereas you're here up at the board on a vertical surface. So be careful how much water you use. And when it dries, sometimes it has this mottled look to it, which is wonderful. It's almost a texture within itself. Take a look at this, some wonderful colors in this area. So now we just spend some time adding these color washes. Let's see, in a lot of places. Will the children fill in 100% of every area? Perhaps, although it's suggested, especially in the intermediate and advanced levels, that they always leave an area blank. And I would even suggest it to this level that they leave some of the area blank. Some turquoise. Let's just add a little bit of this purple. It's very grayed purple because of the magenta and the color of turquoise that we're using. And I'm going to use a little bit more magenta paint with my wash on the tail so that we have a very bright tail. And water, I think this, we'll add this to this area and wash it with the color and water. And the children keep repeating this until they've finished adding just the right amount and the right colors wherever they've decided certain areas should be colorful. You can see it goes pretty quickly, but again, the secret is using a lot of water with very little paint, because we don't want this to look like a poster when we're finished. We want it to have that clay feeling of abstract color as well as an abstract shape. I think I would add a little bit more here and there, but you get an idea of the possibilities. And again, the more samples you have for the children to see, the more they have to choose from and decide what will work best with their artistic eye and their creativity. Enjoy this beginning level.